Some mornings start like any other. A lunch pail, a jacket zipped against the chill, a father kissing his little girl goodbye and heading down a road he's walked 100 times. But not this morning. Because this time the road wasn't empty. This time he found a broken stranger lying in the ditch, beaten, barely breathing. He didn't know her name or what storm she'd come from. He only knew he couldn't leave her there. He carried her home. He saved her life. And before the sun set, he realized he'd rescued far more than a woman. He'd found the start of something that would change them both forever. It had started like any other morning. Caleb Brooks cut across the old county lane because it saved him 15 minutes and 2 stoplights. The sun was only a pale smear behind a thin veil of cloud. Wet grass brushed his boots. Fence posts leaned like old men. A pickup rattled by and disappeared toward town. Then the countryside fell quiet again. Just wind, birds, and the soft whir of high lines far overhead. He adjusted the strap on his lunch pail and kept walking. Work waited, patching gutters on the hardware store, then checking a furnace for Mrs. Dalton. None of it paid much. All of it mattered. Lena, 6 years old and fierce as July, needed shoes that didn't pinch and pencils that didn't break. He'd promised her pancakes on Saturday. He intended to keep that promise. Up ahead, something dark slumped where the ditch met the weeds. Trash, he thought. Then he saw the shoe. One white sneaker, clean as if it had never met dust. Caleb stopped. His heart gave a hard, hollow knock. He listened. The field sighed. A crow called once and went quiet. "Hello?" he said, voice steady on purpose. "Anybody there?" He stepped down the slope. The grass was slick. A woman lay awkwardly where the mud turned to gravel. Her body twisted, her face too still. She was white, pale under the bruises. Blonde hair clung to her cheek like straw after rain. Her jacket hung open. There was dried dirt on the fabric where someone had grabbed and dragged. Caleb knelt. He didn't touch her right away. He'd learned that in a safety course back when he ran crews. Look first, then help. Her chest lifted in a thin, stubborn breath. "Ma'am," he said softly. "I'm Caleb. I'm here." He pressed 2 fingers to the side of her neck. A pulse fluttered there, faint but real. Relief washed through him, warm and shaky, and then another feeling followed. Hot, sharp, because the ground close by told a story. 2 parallel grooves scored the mud as if wheels had bitten in and then were yanked away. A scrap of melted rubber sat in the weeds. Someone had taken her chair. Not broken. Not an accident. Taken. "Okay," he whispered to the air. All right, no bars on his phone, of course. This stretch of road had never cared about reception. The nearest help was a half-mile back. The old feed store office that Mr. and Mrs. Alvarez kept open as a kind of goodwill museum. They still had a landline sitting on a scarred desk next to a jar of peppermint sticks. He looked at the woman again. There was no leaving her here. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm going to lift you. I'll go slow. I've got you." He slid his arms under her shoulders and knees, careful as prayer. She was lighter than he expected, but the stillness of her body made his muscles ache. Her head settled against his chest. A small sound slipped from her mouth. Not quite a word, more a shiver turned into breath. "That's it," he murmured. "You're safe now. I'm taking you to a phone." The climb back up the ditch felt like the side of a hill. He planted his boots, 1 step, then another, keeping her steady against him. When he reached the flat, he started walking. The road stretched long and empty, but Caleb had carried heavier things. Grief, debt, a child who cried at night for a mother who wasn't coming home. He could carry this, too. Halfway to the feed store, the woman stirred. Her eyes opened, blue and glassy, startled by light. "Don't move," he said. "You're going to be okay." Her lips parted. "My chair," she whispered. "They burned it." He didn't ask who they were. "Not yet, I'm sorry," he said. "I'm going to call for help." Her eyes tracked his face like she was trying to pin it to memory. "Don't let them find me," she said, voice paper-thin. "They won't," he said. "Not while you're with me." The bell over the feed store door gave a gentle jingle when he shouldered his way in. The Alvarezes looked up at once, Mr. Alvarez's eyebrows lifting, Mrs. Alvarez's hand already going to her phone. "Back room," Mrs. Alvarez said. "Put her on the cot." Caleb laid the woman on a narrow cot used for long lunch breaks and aches that needed lying down. He dialed 911 and gave the dispatcher everything he had: location, condition, breathing, color. His voice stayed calm. He learned that in the same course, calm makes the right things happen faster. "There's a major pileup on the interstate," the dispatcher said. "We're stretched thin. I'm sending an ambulance from Plainfield, but it may be 2 hours." Caleb closed his eyes for half a second. When he opened them, he was already moving. "We'll keep her breathing," he said. "Please tell them the back door's unlocked." He pulled a folding chair next to the cot. He counted breaths and checked her pulse. He slipped his jacket under her head. Mrs. Alvarez placed a warm towel over the woman's hands. Mr. Alvarez stood in the doorway like a guard. Time loosened and stretched. 20 minutes, 30, an hour. Caleb kept his rhythm. Count, check, speak soft. The woman drifted in and out like a radio station caught in hills. "What's your name?" he asked once when she seemed close. Her brow creased as if a memory pinched. "Charlie," she whispered. "They call me Charlie." "All right, Charlie," he said. "I'm Caleb. You're safe." Her gaze fluttered, then fixed on the ceiling. "Sister," she breathed. "Bored. They said I slowed things down." He didn't understand, and he didn't need to. He tucked the blanket tighter around her shoulders. He glanced at the clock. He kept counting. Sirens finally drew near like a promise. Red lights filled the dusty front windows. EMTs came in brisk and gentle, voices steady, hands quick. "You stay with her?" one asked. "From the road," Caleb said. "You did good," the EMT replied. "She's hypothermic and hurt, but she's fighting." They loaded Charlie with care. Caleb's throat felt tight when the gurney rolled past. He hadn't realized how much he'd been holding until that moment. "Which hospital?" he asked. "County General," the EMT said. "You family?" Caleb hesitated. "No," he said. "Just the man who found her." "Rides for family only," the EMT said, not unkindly. "But you can follow." He called the school and arranged for Mrs. Dalton to pick up Lena. Then he told Mrs. Alvarez he'd pay for the towels he had no right to promise he could replace. She waved him off with wet eyes and pressed peppermint sticks into his pocket like he was a boy again. At the hospital, the air smelled of coffee and disinfectant, of worry and hope. Paperwork found him like paperwork always finds the nearest adult. A detective found him too. Gray suit, kind eyes, notebook already open. "I'm Detective Hayes," the man said. "You Caleb Brooks?" "That's me." "Walk me through it," Hayes said. Caleb told it straight. The road, the ditch, the chair tracks, the words she'd managed. He kept it simple. He kept it true. Hayes wrote, head tilted, listening harder than he looked. When Caleb finished, the detective closed the notebook and studied him for a quiet beat. "Mr. Brooks," the detective said, voice low. "Do you have any idea who this woman is?" Caleb shook his head. Hayes exhaled like a man, about to place a heavy stone on the table between them. "Then we're both about to learn something," he said. Caleb looked toward the treatment doors and felt the strange certainty you feel standing at the lip of a new life. The sense that the ground is the same, but you aren't. He slipped a peppermint into his mouth because his hands needed to do something. He thought of Lena and the promise of pancakes. He thought of Charlie's thin voice saying, "Don't let them find me." "I'm not going anywhere," he said. And he didn't. Morning light spilled through the hospital's tall windows, washing everything in that pale, forgettable color between cream and silver. Caleb sat in a plastic chair, back stiff, hands clasped so tight his knuckles ached. Across the hall, machines hummed. Somewhere, a voice paged Dr. Lang to radiology. Life went on, indifferent and ordinary, except for the woman in the next room. He had stayed all night. He'd promised the nurse he'd leave once the doctor gave an update. But he couldn't. Something about walking out felt wrong, like closing the door on unfinished business. The detective returned just after sunrise. "Paper cup in hand, Mr. Brooks," he said. "You might want to sit down." Caleb was already sitting. "I'm good right here." Hayes pulled a photo from his folder and set it on the table between them. It showed a smiling woman in a navy blazer, her blonde hair neat, eyes bright. "That her?" Hayes asked. Caleb nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's her." The detective leaned on the table. "Her name's Charlotte Weller. Goes by Charlie. She's the CEO of a company called Weller Tech. Medical robotics. Disappeared 2 days ago." Caleb blinked. "CEO? Big one," Hayes said. "Her company builds high-end prosthetics, wheelchairs, all that. Family's old money. Sister on the board. They've been fighting over control for months." Caleb's gaze drifted toward the closed door at the end of the hall. Behind it, that same woman. Bruised, broken, small under too much white linen. "You think her sister did this?" Hayes sighed. "We don't think. We know there's motive, but we'll need her to confirm it when she wakes up." Caleb rubbed his jaw. "And if she doesn't? Then she's another file I have to close," Hayes said quietly. "And you're just the man who tried to help." Caleb didn't like that. He didn't like the idea of her being reduced to paperwork. He stood. "She's not a file. Not while I'm breathing." Hayes smiled faintly. "That's a good thing, Mr. Brooks. Keep that fire." By mid-afternoon, the hallway quieted. The doctor came out, mask looped under his chin. "She's stable," he said. "A lot of bruising, but no internal bleeding. Old spinal injury, partial paralysis. She'll need a new chair and rehab." Caleb nodded. "Can she talk?" "Not yet. She's sleeping." The doctor hesitated. "She's lucky you found her. Another hour, she might not have made it." Lucky. The word didn't sit right. Nothing about what he'd seen looked like luck. The next morning, Caleb brought Lena. She'd insisted. "Daddy," she said, holding her crayon drawing like it was treasure. Maybe the lady needs colors so she knows she's still in the world. That kind of logic made perfect sense to a 6-year-old. They found the nurse folding sheets. "You can go in," she whispered. "She's awake, but still weak." Charlie was sitting up slightly, sunlight painting her face in soft gold. Her eyes opened when Caleb stepped closer. "It's you," she said. Her voice was rough but steady. He smiled. "You remember?" "I remember a man's voice saying I was safe." She swallowed. "That was you," Caleb nodded. "I'm glad you're here to say it." Her eyes moved to Lena, who stood shyly behind him. "And who's this little one?" "My daughter, Lena." Lena stepped forward and placed her drawing on the blanket. A picture of a house with a crooked roof and 3 stick figures holding hands. "It's for you," she said. "So you don't feel lonely." Charlie's hand trembled as she touched the paper. "It's beautiful." "Thank you," Lena grinned. "You're welcome." For the first time, Caleb saw something alive flicker behind Charlie's tired eyes. Not just pain, but gratitude. The nurse came in with medication, and Caleb took that as their cue. "Get some rest," he said. "Wait," she said softly. "Will you come back?" "Yeah," he said. "We will," they did. Every day that week, sometimes he brought soup, sometimes Lena brought more drawings. And every day, Charlie was a little more herself. Sharper, more aware. She began asking questions about him. Where he worked, where he lived, what happened to Lena's mom. He told her the truth. A car accident 3 winters ago. The kind that doesn't leave survivors. Charlie didn't pity him. She just nodded like she understood. "I lost my husband 6 years ago," she said one afternoon. "Plane crash. I used to think grief was a mountain you climb once. Turns out it's the ground you walk on every day." Caleb met her eyes. "You still walk, though," she smiled faintly. trying to. That's when he realized she wasn't just recovering. She was fighting to come back to life. And somewhere in that sterile room, between Lena's laughter, the hum of machines, and the soft sound of her voice, Caleb felt something shift in him. Too, it wasn't love yet, but it was hope. The snow came early that year. Light, soft flakes that seemed to hush the whole world. Caleb stood on the porch, hammer in hand, fixing a loose shutter when his phone buzzed. "Caleb Brooks?" the voice asked. "Yes, sir. This is Detective Hayes. Miss Weller's being discharged today. She asked for you. He didn't expect that." He wiped his hands on his jeans. "You sure?" "She was very sure," Hayes said. "You might want to bring the little one." She lights the room up for her. The hospital lobby smelled of coffee and rain-soaked coats. Charlie sat by the window, a hospital blanket draped across her lap. Her hair was clean, her eyes clear, but she still looked fragile, like porcelain trying to remember it was once unbreakable. When she saw them, her face softened. "You came," she said. Lena ran to her first. "We brought Mr. Bunny. He helps when people feel yucky." Charlie laughed, quiet and genuine. "That's the best medicine I've had all week." Caleb smiled, a warmth spreading in his chest. "Where will you go now?" Her gaze dropped. "Nowhere I can call home. My condo's a crime scene, my sister's in custody, and the company's a battlefield." She looked up again. "So I'm not sure." He hesitated only a second. "You could stay at our place. Till you figure things out." Charlie blinked. "Your place?" "Yeah," Caleb said. "It's not much, but it's quiet. And safe. You'd do that for me?" He shrugged. "You'd do it for me if things were turned around." For a long moment she didn't answer. Then, "I'd like that," she whispered. By evening, the truck creaked up the old gravel drive to the small house on Willow Road. The porch leaned a little. Paint peeled from the railing, but inside smelled like cinnamon and cedar and warmth. "This is beautiful," Charlie said softly. Caleb laughed. "It's held together by stubbornness and duct tape, but it does its best." He helped her inside, rolling the borrowed wheelchair gently over the threshold. Lena darted ahead, showing her the kitchen, the worn couch, the bookshelf missing its middle shelf. "This is my room," Lena announced proudly. "And that one's Daddy's. You can have the one with the window that looks at the trees." Charlie wheeled herself to the window and looked out at the bare branches bowing in the wind. "I haven't seen trees up close in months," she said. "It's nice. It's honest," Caleb said. That night after Lena fell asleep, he found Charlie still awake by the fire. She looked lost in thought. "You sure you're comfortable here?" he asked. "I'm more comfortable than I've been anywhere," she said. Then, after a pause, "You didn't have to do this, Caleb." He looked at her. "I know. Then why?" "Because you needed somewhere to land. And maybe I needed someone to remind me why I still build things." She smiled faintly. "Then I guess we both got lucky." Days passed quietly. Caleb worked his small repair jobs. Charlie set up her laptop on the kitchen table and started rebuilding her company remotely. She was sharper now, voice strong, gaze steady. At night, after Lena's bedtime, they'd sit by the fire. She told him about her childhood, strict boarding schools, distant parents, and the endless pressure to be perfect. He told her about the first time he held Lena after his wife died, how terrified he'd been to be both mother and father. "Funny," she said one night, staring at the flames. "We're both trying to fix what life broke." "Maybe we just patch it good enough to keep moving," he said. She smiled. "That's still fixing." 2 weeks later, Charlie was laughing again. Real laughter, the kind that lights up a room. She and Lena had turned the living room into a paper snowflake workshop. When Caleb walked in from the cold, she looked up at him, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. "Hey," she said. "Hey yourself." "We're decorating," she said, holding up a lopsided snowflake. "Lena says it's our new beginning collection." Caleb grinned. "Can't argue with that." He stood there for a moment, just watching. The glow of the fire, the sound of their laughter, the way it filled the quiet corners of the house that used to echo with silence. Something in him settled. Like this. This was what peace sounded like. Later that night, when the snow started again, Charlie wheeled closer to the fire. "Caleb," she said softly. "Yeah? You ever think maybe we find people for a reason?" He nodded slowly. "I think sometimes God makes two broken paths cross at the right time." Her voice trembled. "That's what this feels like." He met her eyes. And, for the first time, neither of them looked away. The storm rolled in overnight. Rain at first, then sleet that tapped against the windows like small, impatient fingers. Caleb woke early, fixed coffee, and listened to the sound of wind pressing against the farmhouse walls. Charlie was already awake, her laptop open on the table. The glow from the screen made her face look both strong and tired. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she smiled faintly, then sighed. "Conference call with the board in 20 minutes. "Wish me luck." "You don't need luck," he said. "You need truth," she gave a nervous laugh. "Truth's expensive in my world." Caleb poured her coffee, setting it beside her hand. "Then let 'em know they can't afford to lie to you anymore." Her gaze softened. "You always say the right thing," he smiled. "Not always. Just when it matters." The call lasted 2 hours. Caleb fixed a door hinge, helped Lena with her reading, then peeked back into the kitchen. Charlie was still talking, her voice steady but fierce. When the meeting ended, she sat back, breathing hard. "It's done," she said. "They're out. My sister, the board. Everything they stole is frozen under investigation." Caleb whistled softly. "That's something," Charlie nodded. "It's justice, I guess. But it doesn't feel like victory. Feels like loss." He leaned against the counter. "Sometimes winning just means you survived it." She looked at him for a long moment. "You always find the heart of things, don't you?" He shrugged. "Guess that's what's left when life strips everything else away." That evening, the power went out. The house fell into a hush except for the wind and the ticking of the old clock. Caleb lit candles, their warm glow turning the room gold. Lena giggled as shadows danced on the walls. "It's like a movie," she said, snuggling under a blanket. Charlie smiled. "A cozy one, I hope." They played cards by candlelight until Lena drifted off on the couch, her head resting on her stuffed bunny. Caleb looked across the flickering table at Charlie. Her hair caught the firelight, her eyes reflecting it back like polished glass. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, then hesitated. "There's something I need to tell you, Caleb." He sat forward. "All right," she took a breath. "The night they left me on that road, I wasn't just a target. I was a problem they wanted to erase. I'd found proof of fraud, millions stolen through shell accounts. I planned to go public the next morning." He frowned. "So they tried to silence you." Her voice cracked. "They almost did. And if you hadn't found me, hey." His tone was firm but kind. "Don't live in the what-ifs. You're here now." Her eyes filled. "You don't understand, Caleb. I spent my whole life thinking power could protect me. But the night they threw me out there, it wasn't money that saved me. It was you." He looked down, hands tightening. "I just did what anybody would do." "No," she said quietly. "Anybody else might have kept walking." The room went silent except for the storm outside. He met her eyes. "You give me too much credit." She shook her head. "No, you give yourself too little." Hours later, when the storm finally broke, they sat near the fire. Rain softened to a steady whisper against the roof. Charlie spoke first, voice barely above a whisper. "Caleb, I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of feeling too much too fast. Of needing you more than I should," he exhaled slowly. "You think I'm not scared too?" She looked up. "You are?" "Yeah," he said. "Because the last time I cared about someone, I buried her. And I swore I'd never let my heart get hit like that again." Charlie swallowed hard. "So what now?" He reached across the table, his calloused hand covering hers. Now we stopped being scared for a minute. Their eyes met. The air between them felt charged, fragile, like glass and thunder all at once. Then he leaned in, slow enough for her to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met. A quiet, trembling kiss that tasted like rain and second chances. When they finally pulled apart, she laughed softly. "I wasn't expecting that." "Me neither," he said. "Guess some things just happen when the world goes quiet enough." She looked toward the sleeping Lena, then back at him. "She's lucky to have you," he smiled. "No, I'm lucky to have her." Charlie's eyes glistened. "And maybe I'm lucky to have both of you." The next morning dawned calm and bright, the kind of clean light that follows a hard storm. Caleb found Charlie on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the mist rise off the fields. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. She nodded. "It feels like a new beginning." He leaned on the railing beside her. "Then let's not waste it." She looked at him, a small smile curving her lips. "You think we can really build something out of this mess?" He met her gaze. "I don't think I know. Broken things can be fixed." She reached for his hand. "Then maybe we start today." He squeezed her fingers gently. "Yeah," he said. "Today sounds just right." Spring came slow that year, one of those gentle, reluctant southern springs where everything feels unsure until one morning. The air smells like wildflowers and hope. Caleb's house looked different now. Fresh paint, new porch boards, a ramp that curved gracefully toward the yard like it belonged there all along. The place finally felt alive again. Inside, laughter filled the kitchen. Lena was mixing pancake batter, half of it already on the counter. Charlie sat nearby in her new wheelchair, sleek, silver, custom-built. It caught the morning light like a promise. "You're supposed to stir, not fling," Caleb teased. "I'm stirring with enthusiasm," Lena said, grinning. Charlie chuckled, her laughter soft but strong. "You might have a future as a chef, sweetheart." Lena leaned over and whispered loudly, "Only if Daddy does the cleaning." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "We'll see about that." The three of them laughed until the walls felt warm. Later that morning, when Lena ran outside to play, Charlie wheeled onto the porch. Caleb followed with 2 mugs of coffee. She nodded toward the yard, where Lena twirled in the sunlight, her curls bouncing. "She's pure joy," Charlie said. "I don't remember the last time I felt that." "You're starting to," Caleb said. "I can see it." She looked down at her hands. "You've given me more than a place to heal, Caleb. You gave me back a reason to wake up." He shook his head. "You did that yourself. I just kept the coffee hot." She smiled. That soft, knowing kind of smile that meant she saw right through him. "No," she said. "You saw me when everyone else looked away. That kind of kindness changes people." He looked out at the horizon. "You changed me, too." A few weeks later, the case finally went to court. Caleb sat in the front row as Charlie testified, her voice clear and steady. She told the truth about the betrayal, the beating, and the road that almost became her grave. When she was done, Hayes gave Caleb a nod from the aisle. The sister and the board members didn't stand a chance. After the verdict, Charlie came out of the courthouse into the sunlight. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but her eyes searched until she found him. She rolled forward and stopped just in front of him. "It's over," she said. "They're going to prison," he nodded. "Justice served," she smiled faintly. "Justice doesn't heal, but it helps," he offered his hand. "You ready to go home?" She took it. More than ready. Months passed. Summer turned the fields green again. Charlie moved between therapy and remote work, her strength returning, her company reborn. Caleb's repair business grew. New clients, better tools, steady hands. But the best part wasn't work. It was the rhythm they'd found together. Evenings on the porch, Lena's giggles drifting through the open window. The quiet comfort of shared space and unspoken gratitude. Sometimes, when the night fell soft and slow, they'd talk about the past. Not to relive it, but to remind themselves how far they'd come. "I used to think love was supposed to be perfect," Charlie said one night. "Clean, easy, predictable, but maybe love's just two people who refuse to give up." Caleb looked at her and smiled. "Then we're doing it right." She reached for his hand. "You ever think about the future?" "All the time," he said. "But only when you're in it." One golden afternoon, he drove her back to the spot on the old county lane, the place where everything began. The ditch was filled with new grass now, the kind that erases scars. Charlie stared for a long time, then said quietly, "You could have walked away that day." He shook his head. "No, ma'am. I think that road was waiting for me." She turned to him. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found me?" He smiled. "No. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't stopped." For a moment, the world held still. Just them, the wind, and the sound of something sacred settling between their hearts. Then Charlie reached into her bag and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a silver ring. Simple, elegant, engraved with one word: begin. She looked up at him. "Caleb Brooks, will you keep beginning with me? Every day for the rest of them." He didn't speak right away. His throat felt tight. Then he nodded once, firm and full of quiet joy. "Yeah," he said. "I'll begin with you." That night, under a wide, starlit sky, Lena danced barefoot in the grass, fireflies lighting the field around her. Charlie watched from the porch, her hand resting in Caleb's. "She's happy," Charlie whispered. "She's safe," he said. "We all are." The air smelled like honeysuckle and new beginnings, and somewhere deep inside, Caleb knew that miracles didn't always come dressed in angels and trumpets. Sometimes they arrived on lonely roads, wearing bruises, carrying pain, whispering for help. He looked at Charlie and smiled. "Funny thing about broken roads," he said softly. "They still lead you home."